Um, and I also want to thank Venue.live for hosting this event with us. They've been very generous. So Dana grew up in Southeast Mexico in the desert. She started a tech career in the military. She learned Python there, I believe, and maybe Go. She worked at different tech companies. Some of them are Envision, GitHub, as you can see in the swag in her screen. And she's now the CTO of Netlify. She's a big advocate for practical tech decisions and simplicity. So please give a warm welcome to Dana Lawson. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Sydney. I'm so happy to get to come and talk to y'all today.
Thanks. I'd like to touch about developer experience, especially at Netlify. Could you describe a little bit how is Netlify developer experience and what you do about this in your company?
Yeah, I'd love to. Well, Netlify in its core as a product is a developer platform. And so a lot of places are always like, eat your own dog food or sip your own champagne. And so the developer experience is crucial and critical to not only us and our happiness and motivation to work there, but also because like our product, we build a product that should enhance it. I think it really starts with that first touch. You get through the interview, you're joining a team. I mean, the developer experience is when you get that laptop in your hand and hopefully everything's running and you're not adding a whole bunch of passwords for weeks on end. So I like to try to optimize that and have as many things ready in the tool chain out of the box so that people can hit maximum productivity. The first 90 days of a new job is so important. And so having a good developer experience also really helps reinforce like what you're joining and doing. And we're very much in the mindset of get the right tool versus just build it for building's sake. Just like we're building a developer platform to solve problems, and everything is pretty composable these days. Our developer experience is also fungible. We want to ensure that we can keep it modernized and that things not are too fungible where it's not discoverable, but we're not backed in any corners. And so we try to look at it through all the angles. And some of the classic ways, we measure ourselves is through Dora metrics and other ways to ensure that things are happening and that the tempo of shipping is always there.
Interesting. And do you know the Dora metrics by heart, or like is it something you follow as a CTO, or is it more like other like people in the organization that look at this?
I think, we all know them somewhat by heart because just like with any engineering rubric, you don't take it verbatim. I mean, I got to work with Dr. Nicole Forsgren, who was, one of the pioneers with a team from Google and Microsoft and others that came up with this framework. And it's exactly that. It's a framework. So we utilize it some aspects, but do we like chip it in stone and say like, oh my gosh, like look at the velocity's gone down because there's not as many pull requests this week. I think those are a good indicator, but we have a complex system and really different pieces of our offering just have different time cycles and there could be differences within the amount of interrupt driven work we had that week. So we use them overall generally to do like okay, the pulse is there, things are cruising, but I just I don't know. I think you can get stuck into the rabbit hole of measuring everything and only focusing on measuring instead of listening to people. And one of the best ways to understand the developer experience is honestly just to talk to your developers and ask them how they're doing.
I cannot agree more with that. Listening to the people in the organization, asking them, getting feedback from them, and implementing those feedback is so much more important than just following metrics.
You better believe it. Yeah.
um, have you implemented anything like recently? Any project specific, some like maybe internal tools or anything to improve developer experience at Netlify that you could share with us?
Oh yeah, I mean, I always want to find ways to, I don't know, get people out doing boring work. I don't know about you, but I'm like, I'll use all this AI all day. If it can do all my emails, I'm like, set the robots loose. I don't know if they'll talk quite as creatively as me, so that'll be a test for AI. But what we've implemented specifically to our developers are, we've got Copilot for everybody in their IDE. It's like you can use it or you don't have to, but like it is there, like no shame, like go forth. And I worked at GitHub, like you have to test your own limits of how much you want to trust it. But we've also added in some other things where we're partnering with a couple of startups that have these code modification tools that are going through some of our more obnoxious repos and doing some of like the upgrades, where we haven't had a chance to go and say, oh man, let's go do a really gnarly React upgrade. We have these code AI tools that can come in there and say, okay, yeah, change, everything's going to be fixed. And so it does some of the end-to-end testing where before you'd have to go through and, oh man, go work on your test suite for a million years just for a freaking version upgrade. So we've been doing stuff like that, and then little things across the board. Turning on, we use the Google Suite for like emails, Gmails, all the things. So we turned on Gemini. It's like, again, like let's save time because that's one aspect of it. And then finally, one of the more boring ones is boring but awesome. Maybe that's because I'm in leadership like everybody else here is. We implemented company-wide project management tool, but engineering got to pick it out, and we chose, and y'all can choose y'all's own linear, and having a place where it's just a source of truth coming from engineering, product design, that marketing can come and self-serve, that's connected to our Git repositories. It's been a game changer, at least from what people asking me, what's the roadmap. So I'm happy about that. I'm like, you'll look at the roadmap yourself. It's all coming from a tool.
I get that. Yeah, thank you for sharing. By the way, if anybody in the audience has questions, feel free to use the chat, or I see that Garrett has already asked a question, but I'll bring them up during our conversation if I see that something is relevant for the talk. But yeah, let's change topic. Let's talk a bit about team structure and scaling. Um, have you faced any scaling challenges recently, and how did you face them?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I've been doing this so long. I was in the heyday of us like cell multiplying teams, and been through the Shopify model, through like the pod model, through like the fully autonomous teams model. I've scaled teams and descaled teams. It feels like every way. And I think some of the ways that you do it is finding the right span of control to make sure your teams are efficient and have direct line to decision making. There's not necessarily one size fits all, and so it's more of an art than a science, because again, just talking about timelines and code delivery, some teams are not like the other teams. You just got to say they're different. And so I try to ensure that, again, you have that I guess that recipe for what effective output looks like, and you apply that, and then come back and look and say, okay, how should we scale this team? Because we've all read agile and lean books, and the mythical man month exists. You can't just put more people on problems and magically think those babies are going to happen sooner. It's just not going to happen. Your product's going to happen when it happens. So I like to look and see what are the things that, keep a team able to move quickly, have decision making expertise, and that domain knowledge. And sometimes it's a little bit bigger and sometimes it's a little bit smaller. It really just depends. But I've been in the SaaS space and PaaS space for so long, I also think about operationally. Like if you have a service or your service provider, you got to think about how you scale those teams. And you may have to have them burst for a while if you really are under fire for, I don't know, refactoring, growing, and things that kind of gone faster than you, especially if you're a startup. Like stuff can blow up overnight. And, you got to think about that. And again, just be extensible. And so that's the way I've thought about scaling. I think there's some traps to it though, Sydney. I think if you overly scale, which we all, well, I'm going to say it. I've been guilty of it, because you're like, we're going, let's just go build more and more and more. You can bloat out your product. You can bloat out your feature. You can start not having a curated focus backlog of things that matter, and then you just have a bunch of stuff for people to maintain. And I think sometimes the trap with scaling is like, you're just like, great, we have more people, let's just go increase output instead of increase quality. And I think there's got to be a more robust like balance to that.
Agreed. That leads to my next question. How much involvement do you have in product decisions today, um, and how does it go into the flow?
Well, at CTO at Netlify, the product organization actually reports to me. So in my organization, it's engineering, product design, technical support, technical writing. And we build a platform for developers, and so having the engineering lead and the technical lead also be a big voice in product. I mean, I like to think that makes sense. Or I just have a big voice and they're like, she won't shut up, give her some authority in that. But um I think you have to look at it as partners. I have a wonderful co-partner on product, a VP of product, Dan Brock, and we look at it holistically. I really still believe in the engineering product design three-legged stool of how you can develop and curate good, useful, informative, and wonderful things for people to use. And so we all have pretty shared voices. I mean, and I think, more so now with, all the things that are happening, at least in the US economy and globally, is, believe it or not, your finance partners, your marketing partners, and your go to market have a lot of influence too in some of your decision making. And it's just becoming more interesting with the data that you can collect to understand some of the product decisions. And so I'm pretty actively involved, but I also take my seat on the bench when it's like, if my people and the people I'm working with are really inspired and we all feel product minded, like they're pitching stuff too. And I'm just lucky to have a really great product partner on my team as well.
This is interesting. I like this way of thinking where people can bring their own ideas on the table. You don't hire people to tell them what to do. They're pretty good at what they're doing, so they should know, especially since it's a product that they use themselves.
That's right. That's right.
I'm going to bring this question from Vinny. I think this is quite interesting. Since you arrived as a CTO in Netlify, how do you arrive in a startup like that, becoming the CTO? And have you done anything that you could share with us that are interesting to set the pace, set your own pace as a CTO at Netlify?
I mean, I joined Netlify as, SVP of engineering. My focus wasn't necessarily looking at the full umbrella of technology, and, slowly just grew into that role. I've been doing tech a long time. And then, once that change became that I did transition from, okay, you're not VP of Eng, SVP of Eng. You have a much wider umbrella on the business operations of how you influence your technology that you're using, but also what you're producing. My success was really to get a deeper understanding and more connected again with that three-legged stool of R&D, but also extending that out. And so my first 90 days was to really shine a broader light on everything that we're doing under the umbrella of technical output, product delivery, and just how we're measuring our success, and really spending that time in partnership with the other organizations, especially on the go to market side. I think a lot of the times we think CTO, you're just here making architectural decisions, but the modern CTO is just like the modern engineer. You wear multiple hats, and at any given time, you're probably going to be asked to do something, and it depends on what you need. And so my first 90 days, I have a really strong, robust R&D leadership. So I had a good bench. I was like, great, like they're off to the races. What value can I bring? Well, it's bringing out a longer viewpoint into where the technology is going. So partnering with the CEO and saying, where are we seeing this? What market changes are happening? And I think giving that value and that voice, those have been the most important in my first 90 days. And then raising the visibility up across the organization, because being a tech company, typically R&D technology, it's the bulk of your employees, and it can feel like a black hole sometime if you're not in the engineering or the product space. And so just really continuing to bridge that gap, but also trying to stay ahead of all of this excitement that's happening out there. I mean, like, love it or leave it, generative AI is here, and we may have called it ML a few years ago, it still is. But I think that for us as technologists, and that's the first 90 days is the first 20 of the 360. It never ends. You just have to be agile and iterative. And so being at Netlify for a couple years, I had a good head start to learn how to be a CTO, and I had great mentors. I've been surrounded by just wonderful mentors and CTOs from present and past that helped kind of say, business objectives. You've got to start talking in that language and not just like R&D deliverables. And I think that's a big shift from, VP into CTO, or even as, principal engineer into these. You got to start thinking through a lens of how does the business become enabled, and that's usually through alignment and transparency.
Great. Thank you. Um, how do you see the future for Netlify? What's for you the next big things that you should be working on?
I'm going to tell you, like Netlify is an interesting. I mean, I was at GitHub and we thought about all developers, all tech, all the time. And at Netlify, we're really thinking about the web developer and the internet. And the internet, it's not dead. It's not just mobile apps. It's not just, things that we thought it would be well into the future. It's still here to last. And the internet's not going anywhere. Web pages may be looked through VR lens, but they're still web pages, y'all. We may make them seem complicated. So for Netlify, we have a proprietary global CDN, and we also have this development platform. And I think for Netlify, it's really listening to the developer community. Like, composable architecture is what we've all craved as we thought about, the problems and the fungibility and the extensibility of our software. Because not all of us are going to transform into AI companies, and not all of us should. But how do we have that intersection of modern tech in the future? And I think Netlify's got a cool perch. I'm a nerd at heart. So like I'm thinking about AI workloads and caching. Shoot, when are we going to have CDNs on satellites? I probably just gave Elon Musk a good idea. He's probably already working on it. But I think honestly, the expansion of what we do is forever changing. And I think the real interesting part as a service provider is keeping up with how we interface and interact with the internet and websites, and then what humans want and desire with that experience and those changes, because websites are going to be driven by AI. We have an AI programmer out there, Devin, that's taking our job. He's not. Like I said, it was you. But there's so much happening in this space, and I'm excited to see one what we can do to make it a great experience. And again, I'm a nerd. How can we reduce costs? How do we get those GPUs back? How do we not kill the environment? How do we make this continue to do all the things by being good global citizens? Because that's first and foremost. The most important part is being in tech is advancing human progress. So Netlify, we want to stay with it. We want to help all y'all out there that are building all these cool startups and changing the world and being able to do it morally and ethically. So that's it.
Thank you. Let's switch a bit topic and talk about hiring. Um,
Yeah.
do you have any hiring strategies to attract and retain talent? And do you conduct interviews yourself? And do you have any like specific advice on conducting those?
I actually do all the final interviews, and it's not just because I'm like, oh, like you got to pass my smell test. No, it's more like, listen, you're just about to sign up for a job, and I'm the boss of the bosses, and like I want to make sure like you want to get in on this. We all have different dynamics, and culturally speaking, it's for people to feel heard, be seen, and honestly blindly trust as you go into this next position. So for hiring, like I love to be on the hiring. I want to meet every new employee that comes in. When I don't get to, I try to make it a point to meet them within that first week. Most of the time, I'm there in that final interview, getting to answer questions about the organization. But we do the traditional thing. I'm not a huge fan of tech exercises. Okay, I think that 9 times out of 10 they're a waste of time. I think some jobs require them, especially if you have something more entry level and you just want to get a good sense of what level you're bringing somebody in at. Because when I go through my hiring rounds, it's about the job to be done, and that level can kind of it can float a little bit. Like I never really go straight on and be like, okay, I need a staff engineer. I mean, I may find a really strong senior engineer. Um, but I try to, be agile and iterative on the hiring process, just like we are with our software, in the sense that people don't do resumes like they used to. Okay, like 9 times out of 10, you ask somebody for a resume, they're gonna be like, "Hold on, let me go scrape this off LinkedIn. Let me go to Chat GPT and ask them a question about myself, like straight up." So I'm like, you got to meet people where they are, and so curating that through open source, social media and traditional like job platforms like LinkedIn. LinkedIn is what we use, and to attract talent. I mean, it's a tough time for devs out there right now. It is. I mean, you're hearing about all these darn restructures and layoffs, but again, I'm optimistic. I think the future's is swinging real bad hard into the things that we can accomplish through writing good code and coming up with good ideas. But it's a tough time, and I think um, you just got to continue to to look beyond just your own networks even at this moment, because then you just are hiring people that can probably get jobs everywhere else, but really keeping your eyes and ears open. I like to just pay attention. People always send me referrals, I'm here for it. And try to broadcast. And then I listen to the team again. I'm like, I listen to the team, but I also want to listen to the community. Like, what are people doing out there? Where are there segments where there's some great developer talent? And then on the attainment side, I don't know, pay equality, pay people fairly, give them good time off, um, give them give them the opportunity to work without friction, and I think you're going to build a good experience. And some of the things that you got to constantly tweak are like how to make those human connections when a lot of us are still remote. But when we talk about retainment, it's about having engaged, awesome projects to work on with cool people and having a voice and say in them. I don't think people need much.
Thank you. I'm going to bring this question from Garrett Reynolds. Has AI impacted headcount planning for software engineers, and is it full speed ahead at
for
Netlify?
for me for me personally, it's full speed ahead. If anything, it's just help take out some of the stuff we didn't want to do in the past. Like, instead of me going, hey, whole team, really, I'm gonna need you to refactor the CLI because like we would add this feature, and like CLI is a million years old, and like nobody wants to do that. I mean, everybody wants to do that work. Like anytime you use it, you're like, I want to do that work, but you don't got time. I'm looking at it through the lens of how can AI enable us? How can it do some of this stuff where that list of I ain't got time? That's where I'm at with AI right now. I mean, we're in a world where I think, it's natural to say that it will be beyond just being an internal tool set and something that is doing more of the content or more of the user, the experience side of the house. But I don't know, I'm still a control freak. I want to see that preview. I want to do I want to see the beta before we release it. And I don't know if I'm just that. I think we're well off from that. And in the future, it could, like, I mean, shoot, like, us managers, wait till they have the AI managers that are like performance rating meets. I mean, I think that all aspects of human employment will shift in some ways, but it hasn't impacted none. If anything, I'm hoping I need to check on the team, that it makes them feel better to produce more things, honestly, to help them be more productive. Um, I want to mention though, when we dipped our toes into AI, the first thing we did was is create a survey for. It started off in R&D, but cascaded across Netlify to just get a sense of people's comfort level. Like, it's easy to assume, like, oh, we're all technologists and futurists, we're gonna love this. No way, man. Like, we're a tech company. Half people sit in California. Like, we care about the things that affect everybody. And so we wanted to get a sense of like, are you comfortable? What are your moral and ethics behind it? How do you feel about it? How do like, where do you stand? Where do you stand? And we got really great signal. Most of the company filled it out, and then that was good opportunity and action for myself and the rest of the executive team to say, okay, this is how we start getting comfortable, us internally for our customers, and also to make it be something that is embraceable, because it's scary out there. You read the doom scroll of like AI taking your jobs, and I think if you don't acknowledge that, like, you're not doing the right thing. You got to acknowledge that people are worried, because like we're programmed to be worried.
How did people take AI at the beginning? Were there mixed feelings about this, or how did people take it in the company? What was the responses?
There was mixed feelings. There was definitely mixed feelings when we started implementing it. Here in the States, a lot of the actors and creative types were pretty darn upset about how AI would impact their work. And I think we have a lot of wonderful people that look beyond what we do. I mean, I think there was just some nervousness about it, like, oh, will somebody think I'm not as good of an engineer because I used AI to help me program? I think that's,
Important.
I had both sides house. You know what I did is I just showed them me doing it. I was like, I'm a terrible programmer. I can't believe AI's here. It's like spell check. I remember when spell check came out, I was like, finally. I'll put
Yeah.
enough commas where they should be and not be. It doesn't make you any less good or not as intelligent. It just makes you better. Like I move at a million miles a minute, believe it or not. This is me always. So don't talk to me after more coffee. I just think that we had both ends of the spectrum, and so it's about showing up and being vulnerable and being like, yeah, I'm using it too. And now we have almost global adoption. Everybody's like, I can't believe you're doing that. Like people think about it, it's like meeting notes. Why are you taking those meeting notes? You make AI do that. Why are you writing that down? We'll just dictate it to AI. I'm like, okay, you still got to do some stuff. But it's been fun.
Thank you. Um, I'd like to talk a little bit more about you. You're a prominent woman in technology, and you must be an inspiration to many. Have you faced any challenges being a woman in tech? And what advice do you have for like other women looking to grow their career in tech?
I mean, I've been doing this so long. This is 25 years. I mean, I think somebody on the call are probably younger than me being in tech. I've been through it all. I mean, I think a lot of the challenges are the ones that a lot of people face. I don't know necessarily specifically like, you know, how it affects all women or frankly underrepresented people, but there's still a bridge to cross for tech being more diverse, and that could be gender or race. And some of the challenges are the ones that you see in every industry. It's like being heard, being seen, being considered like smart enough. I think for a woman, I think my biggest challenge is like, because I don't know, I've been told I have a big personality. I've tried not to have one, but it's just me. Is like, like there's already skepticism of your technical aptitude. If you got a big mouth, like, and you just kind of like, have levity, there's even a little bit more. But I just tell people, I'm like, you own it. You own it. If a company that doesn't see your greatness, then it ain't great for you. And you can change the world and you should fight the good fight, but I'm not going to go anywhere. And I know that's easy to say right now because I have a lot of privilege of doing this so long and I have it in different ways. But, I started out in a non traditional background, single mother, and just being my true self. And surrounding myself with smart, hungry, and humble people because that's the values I live for. And just, having a bunch of willpower and all those other birds, tenacity and grit. I think right now in the market, all of us need to, experience those traits and put ourselves into that to continue to advance. In leadership, that's how it's not being the loudest voice, it's being the voice that makes the biggest impact. And so I don't know. It's been an interesting 25 years. It's been rocky in some places. It's been amazing in others, but I don't know. I wouldn't change anything at this point. Like I said, continue to be the force of change. And what I try to do is just show up being me. I've tried to be a different, more put together, polished executive. And sometimes I can wear my tuxedo like the rest of them. But at the end of the day, I'm a nerdy technologist that loves people and wants to change the world and hopefully have the smarts to do it. And I think that's what we want in technology is a growth mindset, an optimistic growth mindset. I don't know.
Thank you. Have you put in place any policy, any hiring policy at Netlify that shows that it was a good decision to do so, or have you done anything towards that at Netlify or in any other company where you worked at?
A hiring policy in what sense?
In like gender equality or
Oh yeah,
underrepresented?
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I would say that you don't want to have bias no matter what. Like, you want to hire fairly equitable and think about inclusion. And really it's about, ensuring that you're giving the opportunities out there alike. So I put in place like hire you can't just interview, you know, three men, like interview lots of people. Like don't just like we're not in a ruthless situation where you got to hire the first person you talk to. Go talk to lots of people. Get the right person for the right job because you never know. And I think some little things like that help hold that value, but also we have a company value. Like we want to ensure that not only are we a developer platform for people in one segment of humanity, but for all of us. And we know that people learn in different ways that you could come from. There's a ton of studies that show just people that are living impoverished, they are more susceptible to visual learning than written learning. So finding those avenues within the product. So I think when we talk about hiring, it starts with really your company culture and your value, and looking and saying, does that team have a diverse leadership team? Like, if it doesn't, it's probably not gonna for a minute. And diverse in many aspects, for either it's gender, race, or other. But it's not, the world's not perfect. It's hard to start there, and I think you have to make strides. Especially if you're a startup. Typical startups start with two people, and to be a co-founder, you got to be best friends. And a lot of best friends come from the same place. It's just natural how it goes. And I think, again, as you grow and as you go, you have to start really being mindful, especially if you're speaking to a global audience, and you believe in the global citizen. And I think, in tech, that's what I want. That's why I love open source, because anybody can participate. So yes, nothing though like policy wise that says this or that. It's more about ethos and values.
I like that. I think it makes a lot of sense. Having the right company culture and implement that as much as possible throughout everyone in the company. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, this is great. Thank you. Um, yeah, let's switch topic again. Let's talk about technical strategy and product development. Could you share with us the most ambitious technical decision you've made in the past year
Oh, in the past year. Oh man.
or before?
Or before. And let me think. Like I said, 25 years I got a mind. You said the most. I mean, I've dealt with three monoliths, two Ruby, one Cold Fusion that still gives me nightmares. I don't know. That wasn't my technical decision alone. All right. Um, Honestly, I don't want to take credit for anything that I've been a part of, because really at the senior leadership level and at my level, like, I am coming up and I have the final decision. And a lot of the times, like, I am there with the 50-51 split. And I think, I'll give you a really small example. Is we had done a lot of work, and this is at Netlify, building a service out, and it was for our global network, and it was built in Rust. And it is very hard to find a lot of Rust engineers. If you know any Rust engineers, you call me. They all work at Mozilla, okay? All of them except Nathan Stocks, he works at GitHub. So they're all taken up. I needed to get this baby going a lot quicker, and I needed the services to be extensible and add more. So I made the decision to rewrite it and go. Yes, I'm a Go fan, but guess what? There's a lot of Go fans out there, and some of the decision making was that Rust is much more performant. It was the better actual software language for our external network. But like, at the end of the day, once again, where you gonna find any Rust experts? They don't exist, okay? They really don't. I mean, maybe there's more now, but I was like, for uptime, for serviceability, for all the things of a mature service platform, like, we're making the decision. We're changing this thing from Rust to Go. We did it, and it was a risky piece of infrastructure, and that was a small change. Bigger changes, man, I've gone and replatformed from .NET to Java. That gave me nightmares. I've gone from, oh man, when I was at New Relic, we're like, we're gonna go and implement a NoSQL solution for our high volume metrics. And at the time, we had most of the stuff in MySQL. We chose Cassandra, and I don't know if anybody on the call is familiar with Cassandra as a backend. Just ask me about the gossip protocol, and it's not me gossiping right now. That was one where I'm like, that was a really challenging one. I don't know, man. Anytime you're dealing with streaming and Kafka, it always feels really hard. um, so I can't name one because I don't know. I feel like that's what people bring me in to do. Is they're like, okay, we've reached the limits of what this original architecture will do. What can we do? So monoliths to microservices to monoliths in SOA to like language changes, you name it.
How do you keep up with technology? I mean, since you're the CTO, I'm guessing you're coding less and less than you used to. Do you try to code on your free time? Do you look at technology? Do you look at reports? Do you listen to the people in your team? Like, what? How do you keep up with everything?
I
And
don't.
what?
I try.
Okay.
I mean, I know I try. I mean, I code in my free time. If something looks interesting, I'm gonna try it out. I am, but I've been in leadership so long. I'm not going to pretend I'm like the most BA coder anymore. Like, I am surrounded. I go ask my principal engineers. I don't even not even care. I'll be like, "How do you do this?" And 9 times out of 10, if it's definitely something on the JavaScript side, because I don't know, I work for a front end company, but me and JavaScript, we ain't the best friends unless it's jQuery and dollar sign the hell out of anything. But in all jokes aside, honestly, I just read, educate. I am a voracious learner. I apply a beginner's mindset. If I haven't done something in a long time, I'm going to get up and redo it. So I just try to stay. I try to stay up on top of it. But I know I don't. I know I'm not going to be the expert anymore. I've had to give that up. I had to say, okay, you're not going to be the expert anymore. And I'm fine with that. But I can still do a lot of stuff, and that's good enough. And so, reading, coding, writing little POCs, watching videos, man. I love it. I don't know about you, Sydney. When I first started coding, it was a lot harder. Okay. You just had to read books. And like, I don't even like reading books. Now I'm just like, oh, let me watch this video for 2 minutes. And I'm like, boom, 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 boom. Or, like get close enough and Copilot tells me I'm on fire. I love it. Kids are lucky today. It's amazing. That's how I do it.
Yeah, I also feel it gets much easier every day. I didn't start coding as early as you, but yeah, videos definitely help me.
Heck
ChatGPT today
yeah.
helps you so much. So yeah, I agree with that. You've mentioned technical debt a lot. How do you balance new features and tech debt in your team? Do you have some allocated time for one or the other, or like how does it work?
I mean, it comes back down to those earlier questions like how do you scale a team? How do you measure? I mean, every team has a little bit of a different boundary. I try to do it like really balanced. Some teams have like 40 to 60% because you just know they're going to get called. Some have it a little bit less, but everybody should always be working on quality. And tech debt is such a loaded word. I mean, it could be anything from like vulnerabilities, it could be like code patterns, it could be linting, it could be in testing, it could be there's tech debt everywhere. Like if you have any kind of software that's been alive for a minute, you got a bunch of crap in there. So I just try to make sure that like we know that the easiest of math that there's probably one person on every team at any given moment, not the same person working on tech debt. So if you have a 4-person, 5-person team, tech 20, 25, 30%. If you have a team that's a service provider, like our, more on your DevOps side, they're going to be a little bit higher. And this is where I do look at those metrics and start saying, like, okay, our incidents going up. What's our reliability? Because again, that signal is going to tell you, like, okay, are you accumulating debt? Are you ignoring it? Because if you have a stream of like break, 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 and you're still pumping out features, you're not working on it. You're just going to keep breaking shit. So I just try to make sure that we have a culture where people feel they can work on it. Because I think one of the traps in engineering is like, oh man, product has this deliverable. We have to do it. My manager said, and it's like, yeah, but if this is like really broken, like having a culture where somebody's going to say like, no, listen, I hear you. Like we're going to take it serious. I think you want people that care. And if you continuously say that their concerns and their quality don't care, they're not going to work there. No, I mean, as much as everybody thinks we just want to push out shiny objects, it's not true. I think, I don't know about you, but a developer dream for me is like just getting to do shit right, having the time to just really do it right. And we know that's not reality. So I think you have to make it a culture where you can go back and incrementally continue to improve.
Thank you. I like that. Um, this is a question that I've been asked from the audience before the event, but how do you treat your competition? So you have some big competitors out there. We don't need to mention them. How do you treat them? Do you like look at them? Do you look at what they're doing, or do you focus on your users, on your product? Um, Share that with us.
I mean, we're all in business together. It'd be foolish not to look at your competitors. Sales would be like, what are you doing? Like, you're just like not listening to the customers. Because if you have competitors, that means your customer's doing something. I mean, I think that there's enough space in any corner of a Gartner quadrant for any kind of tools, and you'll see that. Like, there's a million things that do a million things. I mean, you got like rideshare. We can talk about Uber and Lyft. They're still here. They're still doing their thing. I don't know about you. Sometimes I pick the pink. Sometimes I pick the black. Comes down to price. That's my reasoning. For me, I try to really say, what is our return on value? Where do we meet in the market? What can we do that's unique? What offering and what service can we provide? And the way Netlify is like, we're agnostic. I think our number one competitor, I love them. Like, I'll say it for Sal. Like, they got a great framework. I think Next is freaking cool. It's awesome. We're talking about making stuff easier. That's why these JavaScript frameworks came into, or you would just be doing vanilla JavaScript. Okay, you're not doing vanilla JavaScript because you want a framework to do it. And so I think that they have a really interesting approach, and I love the development community. I have a lot of ex-hubbers I worked with that work there. But I think for Netlify, we're really focusing on that developer experience holistically. Not all of us can choose one framework. A lot of companies have to choose multiple frameworks. You heard me say three monoliths. I think that tech continuously iterates, and composable architecture is here to stay. And composability means that you're in different stages and have different services and different things that are happening at any given time. And people need to future proof their stacks. Like, time is of the essence. Like, if you're a tech company, not thinking about how you can integrate or build on this new modern tool sets that's coming, you should probably go look at your stack. So I think, like, for us, it's really listening to the developers out there. Where are they stuck? What are they trying to do? And what the future is going to bring? And taking that approach and trying to solve really meaty problems. But you can't change the world overnight. It takes a long time. And so being a good partner out there, I think that comes back down again is just like with self education for me, is like looking at what's being built. Like, I get to talk to so many awesome open source people out there in the community, and they're building so many cool things. I mean, libraries, frameworks, tools, utilities, and we can use them all. I love Dino's runtime. Like, before this, we didn't have we didn't have an open source runtime. And if y'all aren't familiar with that, it's amazing. Go check it out. Um, I just think you have to be, again, I keep saying fungible, but fungible, so that you can really help guide companies and yourself to be that future proof company by embracing these tools. And I don't think it's going to be one framework. It's going to be lots of frameworks. I don't think it's going to be one CMS. It's going to be I don't know. Shoot, who even knows? Who knows? Who knows what it's going to be?
We see new frameworks every like other day, so
2 years.
I'm pretty sure
Every
things
two
will.
years.
Yeah,
Every 2 years. I mean, like, the remix community. I'm going to Epic WebConf, this week. I'm excited. Like, there's some cool stuff out there. I can't wait to go listen to all the things I didn't even have like line of sight in, because I'm sure that there's even more amazing things that are happening for the web.
thank you. I'm gonna bring some questions from the audience. There's this one from Martin. Um, I think as a startup founder, we we deal with a lot of conflicts between co-founders. I've dealt with conflicts myself, but very curious to see how does that evolve when you're a bigger company, and how do you handle those as a C level person?
Oh man, you talking about us C's getting together and be like, no, honestly, we just keep it real. We try to get and do all our offsites in person. We're a small enough cohort. We get together and talk it out. We try to practice. Uh, you know, uh, what do they call that? Look, I can't even say it, but we just try to practice a lot of humility and empathy amongst each other, and curiosity. Like, it gets heated. Like, shoot, what do they say? The five dysfunction of a team is when everybody does this. Just know, Martin, your team must be real healthy, and so is mine. Because a lot of times we're like, man, me and finance, we go toe to toe, but that's our job. I think it's about just really rooting ourselves in our objectives and our company metrics, and asking ourselves, like, where's this conflict manifesting? How does it directly impact the output of what we've signed up to be? What are our commitments to our shareholders? What are, our board members, our VCs? And trying to be rooted in what success looks like. Because a lot of the times when you're starting getting in those conflicts, you're just getting lost in your own little silo of your business. I try to, and like the rest of my team, we try to elevate it and say, let's go look at the numbers. Let's bring it back to an objective data set. And then let's dive in and try to practice like non finger pointing. I mean, it's really building interpersonal trust with your team. Like, as much as it may seem like, oh, what a waste of time, I try to go out with my team and like have dinner with them, and like not just ask them about their kids because it's the nice thing to do, but it's because their life and they're under the same pressure I am. and I sonder about them. I think about, like, why did they sign up for this? Why am I signing up? And what do we have a commitment to do together? And again, just finding that gratitude is, woo woo as it sounds, recentering ourselves and saying, what are we doing and why are we here? Now, if it's a personality mismatch, I don't know. That's when I go complain to the CEO. If you're the CEO, I'm going to complain to you and be like, get this person out now. Usually, I don't know. I think you need to have difference of opinions and just keep buying when it becomes destructive. You know when it becomes destructive, but healthy conflict is healthy, and that's what we're here to do as C levels is work through the hard stuff, and the hard stuff usually has a lot of friction. So get to know your teammates, hang out with them, go do silly stuff, and care.
How often do you meet with people? I mean, how often do you meet with other C-level people in the company? I'll give you an example. At YC, we've had this conference that talk about the co-founder sync, where we should talk about trust, and they advise us to do that at least every week. And this is what we've been doing with my co-founder ever since, and I think this has helped us a lot. And I can see ourselves doing this for the next few years, and I think this is very healthy. But do you have time to do this in your company? Like how often do you do that?
I mean, we actually got a small little office space down in the Bay so that we would, because we keep getting together so often. And I live in Portland, Oregon, so it's like, it's not a big deal for me to go to San Francisco. It's right over there. But if I had a sea level in France like yourself, that makes it, you ain't gonna do it weekly. Like, it's not gonna happen. And we have some that aren't, we have sea level that's in, Ireland. We're not going to bring them in from Ireland. They would, their family would probably be like, that's it, you're done. So I think it's balancing that. We try to get together basically once a month, but no less than once a quarter. I mean, I think we do our quarterly frequency where we're always together, and then we ad hoc it in on stuff we're working on. And even then, we try to make it remote friendly for the onesie twosies that can't join, but we do try to make an effort to do an advancement. One of the things that's been really helpful, and I'll share this, is building out a rhythm of a business calendar. It's as simple as it sounds. It's having a calendar for your executive team, your C level team, that shows all the important dates. And believe me, it's there's so many. It's like conferences, customer meetups, SKO, whatever KO you have. We try to put that in there and just time it really thoughtfully so that we can ensure that that in-person time is there. And I think you have to make it a practice. It's very easy to not make it a practice, but you can find other ways to build trust. But I think when you're at this level, you're pushing hard, you got to have some face time until that's established. I've been at Netlify a little over 2.5 years. Like, they trust me. I can go in my cave and they're like, oh, we know what she's doing. But until you feel that, and it is a feeling, keep it going, keep it rolling, and keep pushing. And then don't get too comfortable. Like, I still show up. I'll just go down there randomly too and go see the CEO or, the sales leader and be like, hey, what's going on? Let's just work it out. Again, being fiscally minded always. But I do think it's important. So establish that rhythm of business calendar, go put it out there, and you could save money. You can get together. You could be responsible about it, budget it. And that's another part. Budget it, forecast it in at the beginning of the year. Don't make it an afterthought, because international travel, if you have an international team, is expensive.
Thank you. I think this is very helpful.
Cool.
Let's bring some other questions from the audience. We have one from Pedro Castillo. Dora metrics are classic for a reason, but are there any unusual metrics that you found useful?
There is, okay, this one I'm still tweaking with. That's been a couple years in the making, but check out the space framework. It's like the second edition of Dora. Yeah, it looks like you've read it. I think it's still unusual to mine flow state, that uninterrupted time. You can just put in effort, because you're not going to be measuring keyboard clips. Give me a break. But I think that there's something to be said to correlate that to your internal net promoter score, right? So I think it's not necessarily unusual, but I think they go hand in hand. Is going and saying, okay, internally, your internal employee experiences, promoter score internally is at X. What does their velocity and frequency and Dora look like? And usually on the R&D side, if stuff's really broken, you're going to see your internal sentiment go down. I don't think it's, and again, that comes down to, if we look at that space metric, what they're saying is, you know, developers reach a state of flow, and artists and creatives after, and you can pump out and produce. But with every interruption, it takes 23 minutes for you to reset. So if you have a broken build, or if you have to re-authenticate, or if, I don't know, somebody pings you 15 million times asking you your favorite dog pick. It could be anything. We're Slack heavy here. I think that interrupts people, and that may not manifest in Dora 100%, maybe some, but then your employee sentiment will mirror that. So I don't know anything unusual, but I think trying to understand an employee's overall sense of happiness is something that has to be measured outside of just straight up metrics, and that's a tough one. It's more feely, and it shouldn't just come from HR. If you're the engineering lead, it should come from you. You know their world. Ask them pointed questions, not like, would you recommend this place to work? Like, no, ask them like, what in your day to day grind your gears. They'll tell you.
I agree. I think you summed it up very well. The space framework is really about like understanding everybody's motivation and well-being, and having them like be happy about their work and
Yeah.
wanting to go there, and like playing with the motivation of everyone, not playing, but like having them being
Mm-hmm.
motivated and asking them what they want to do and are they happy going to work and coding. And you also mentioned an uninterrupted workflow, and I think this is a great one for developers, being able to like work throughout the whole day without any interruptions. um, this is a good one.
I think we've gotten so used to the like instant messaging like lifestyle. Like, and yeah, a lot of companies are like, you gotta be on Slack all day because you work remote. I'm like, you know what? If you want to turn off Slack all day, like, because you are an individual contributor and you've already done your team stand up, like, turn it on maybe once a day, check and make, but like, give yourself that focus time. Don't go, because you're gonna want to break other than just checking instant message. I don't know about you, but like, when I'm in it, after 90 minutes, I feel like a little, whoo, you're like, shoot, that was a power sesh, and you just want to stretch your legs for a minute. But if you're going immediately into the next context and the next context, you're not going to have many 90-minute stretches. And that's about the limit of attention that people can have. So kind of fill it out that way. But yeah, definitely agree. It's a hard one.
Thank you. Let's pick a last question from the audience. Give me a minute. Yeah, let's keep on the same topic. Where do you think the biggest engineering efficiency is coming from Vitaly?
I think it is coming. Ooh, 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 ooh. Dang it, I feel like I just keep saying it depends. But honestly, it's removing friction from the release path. I think is a lot of where efficiency can come from, like PR reviews, um, testing. Like I think like you go to push code and you're like test, because a lot of the times you're not really blocked on your local dev setup. You got everything set up. You're usually rocking and rolling. So we're gonna fast forward. Like, you onboarded. You're just writing code. I think anything you can work out to have your CI/CD really just top notch. That is more smart than dumb. Meaning it's not gonna stop you every 5 minutes. I think that's a huge amount of efficiency. And beyond that, again, I talked about linear is just clear goals, task, and deliverables. So if you can add that together with a really great release pipeline, people can just fly. But if there's too much ambiguity about what they're building and you have to ask a million questions, that means you haven't done enough of the product side and the tasking or the curation of those issues. It's going to slow you down. If you move past that and then you have a real brittle CI/CD and you're ready to ship and do a git merge, that's going to slow you down. And then it just kind of goes like, well, tomorrow I got to show up and maybe I'll crush this, but this is broken. I think it comes 9 times out of 10. I've never seen it anywhere but there. Always, always.
How much time does it take for the CI/CD to run on your stack? Do you
Oh,
know?
it's
You don't.
we're
Oh,
yeah we're so fast. Our biggest problems come down to like like old test. We still have a monolith. We also have monolith plus plus. We've been through 2 acquisitions, but when you have a mono repo, we could probably talk about mono repos in itself. I think we're in a good spot, but I want to make sure quality's up, and so end to end test and like that. That's where that's. I'm just being real transparent with you, 25 people. That's where I get a little bit like, oh, okay, fix the test. That's why I'm working. That's why I'm working on the test.
Okay. Are you happy being on the mono repo today? Would you do things
I think
differently?
honestly, I think there's good things about it. There's bad things. I mean, I inherited it, so I don't know a world without this one. Um, yes, I'd probably do things differently, but maybe not. I don't know. I love Ruby. Okay. I mean, I think that there's a reason that that language was invented and why, Rails came out around it, and it serves its purpose. I don't think monoliths, monorepos are bad. I think that just think about again, how can you make it, extensible when you've hit massive load, because it will happen, because there's a limit to all these things. And so there's not one right or wrong way to do it, in my opinion. It's solving the problems and looking in the future and saying, can we still work with this and move beyond? So I'm for it. But there's different problems, as you know, with builds, and then like, oh man, if people are like, I worked at GitHub. I love Git repository, but like mono repo, sometimes they can bite you and they can bite you. But they'd also be fast. They're also fast. I don't know. It's interesting. We should have a talk about that someday. Mono repos, yes or no? I don't know.
Well, thank you so much, Tana. This was a great session. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. Are you okay if we record this and put this on YouTube?
Yeah, go for it. I don't mind. I didn't say, well, ask my lawyers. No, I'm joking. No, this was great. I really appreciate you reaching out, Sydney, and having me on. And like y'all, I'm not on a lot of socials. I'm not, but you can hit me up on LinkedIn. Come and chat with me. I'd love to hear from y'all.
Great. Well, thanks again, and have a good day in Portland.
You too. Bye.